In this video, I'm going to talk about how to become multi-talented in building maintenance. Let's talk about it. In today's world, maintenance is more important and more needed than ever before. You have a lot of people return from the maintenance field, and so there's like a void of new people to fill those positions. So everybody can't go to college, and they're realizing that now that college isn't for everyone. Maintenance, on the other hand, is a really good career, and the growth is just unbelievable for the right person. I mean, you can start out as a building custodian and work your way all the way up to chief engineer. Just, if you do these things that I'm finna talk about, this will make you stand out over everyone else, and you would get there a lot quicker if you didn't do these things. So, what are some of the things that you need to do in building maintenance to stand out and grow in the field? One, you have to be dependable. Being dependable is probably the number one thing that matters in any job, is to be for the employer to have confidence in you that you're going to be there when they need you. So if a pipe bursts at 2 in the morning, you're going to be there. If they need you to work holidays when everybody else is off, you're going to be there. All that's important. And believe me, companies really do appreciate that type of loyalty in maintenance, because, in maintenance, you got pipes that burst, toilets clog, you name it, and it can happen all hours of the day. So they love it when you don't make a big deal out of having to come in on your off day on a holiday if it's an emergency. The other thing you want to do, you want to take on jobs that nobody else want to tackle. You want to take on the big jobs. I always did big jobs, and the big jobs stand out because everybody want to do the easy stuff, but it takes a quality person to step up and do the big stuff, and you want to be that person. So what are some of the things that you need to learn if you don't already know how to do? One is you want to learn plumbing. Plumbing is everything evolves around plumbing, whether it's a kitchen sink, a bathroom sink, whether it's toilets that's clogged up or parts to be needs to be replaced on them. Plumbing comes in handy for that. You want to learn how to do some basic rotting, and down the road learn how to do some major rotting. But you want to learn how to use the hand rotter, which is like a drill with a cable, and that's mainly used for like kitchen sinks and bathroom sinks and the tub. So that's something you want to learn how to do. And if they got that where you work at, you want to volunteer to the boss to learn how to do it. And believe me, he'll be happy for you to learn how to do it, because the more you know, the more you'll work. The next thing you want to know how to do in plumbing is how to work with copper piping. Galvanized pipe is going by the wayside, and copper piping, if you know how to sweat and install copper piping, that's a plus, because not too many people work with copper piping. So if you can learn how to sweat copper piping and do some insulation with it, that's a plus. The next thing you want to know how to do is electrical. And mainly the basic stuff. If you're not an electrician, and if you're not too comfortable with it, you want to know how to install and replace outlets, switches, and know how to troubleshoot if the tenant doesn't have power. You feel confident to go to the breaker panel and test the breaker to make sure the breaker isn't bad, or it just needs to be reset. And doing electrical and building maintenance is a plus, because this way, if it's an office building or a big high-rise apartment building, they have emergency lighting, exit signs, things of that sort. And if you feel comfortable that you can replace the ballast or replace the fixture itself, that's a plus. The next thing you want to know how to do is paint. Now everybody say, "Oh, I know how to paint." That's the first thing people say when they go on interview. I know how to paint, and everybody don't know how to paint. There's an art to painting, and everybody can't paint. People say they can paint, but it's an art to it. When you're painting, if you paint a room, depending on the size of it, it may take you a day or two to paint that room if you're doing it right, because you're using different size rollers, different size brushes. You don't have newspaper and cardboard. You're not using blue tape all over the place, and you're not doing all that amateur stuff. So a good painter, he won't have any paint on him after he finishes the job, because he's very neat and thorough with the craft. And then he know how to use a 1-inch brush opposed to using a 4-inch brush for everything, and using a small 4-inch roller instead of using a 9-inch roller. So these are some of the things that you need to know how to do when you're painting. You need to know the different shades of paint, how to match up paint, so when you learn how to do painting, that's a plus. And you also want to know how to do some patchwork on drywall. That's very important, because in this business, you're going to always run across busted drywall that you need to cut out a piece, put another piece in there, put a little mud on it, sand it, and paint it. Very important. Jobs love it when you know how to do that. The next thing you want to know how to do, you want to learn how to inspect a property. And I don't mean, just go in there and waste a whole day. No, you want to learn how to walk a building. And when I say walk a building, you basically doing like a 30-minute visual inspection of the property. You check the outside of the property, make sure you don't have anything that's out of the ordinary, like a broken window or glass or anything out of the ordinary. You want to do a visual inspection and make sure that everything's okay. Then you want to be able to do the inside of the building, where you check every floor. You want to make sure all your exit signs are lit, all your emergency lights are lit. You don't have any water anywhere. You don't have anything out of the ordinary. You don't have people hanging out in the staircase or hanging out in the hallway. It's very important when you know how to inspect a property. And I can get into it more in depth, but this video will be too long, and I'm trying to keep it short, but put a lot of material in it. The next thing you want to know how to do is work on hot water tanks. And that's a big one. And most commercial properties have electric tanks, and you want to be able to switch out the heat element. And all that is being able to turn the power off and put another element in there, and you're good to go. You want to know how to install a hot water tank, and that takes a little bit more knowledge, and that's where that copper pipe sweating comes in, because you would probably use copper piping when you replace the hot water tank. So it's very important to know how to do a hot water tank. The next thing you want to know how to do is know how to work on locks. And most commercial properties have commercial locks. And it's a little bit more complicated than the lock you would get at a Home Depot. But if given the opportunity to learn how to do pedal locks and some of the deadbolts and some of the other commercial locks, that's a plus, because not too many people know how to work on locks, and especially commercial locks. The next thing you want to know how to do is have a general idea the way flooring works. Whereas if you have to patch your floor or install a bare foam floor with the floating floor, the laminate or something like that, you know how to do it, and or just have a general idea the way it works. The next one is carpentry. You don't have to be a straight up carpenter, but you should be able to know how to use a jigsaw, circular saw, and do small repairs or things that get you by in carpentry. And that's a plus if you know how to do that. The next thing you want to have knowledge of the way furnaces work, know the basics of it. You might be in a residential building or residential community that the management company manage, and they all have their own individual furnaces and condensers. So it's nice, and you can take a couple of community college classes on how basic furnaces work, and it's fairly easy once you learn the basics of it. How it started up with the induction fan, and then the glow plug, and then the blower motor, things of that sort. And if it's not in sequence, then or if it's the flame sensor, that lets you know that flame sensor is probably the most common problem dealing with a residential furnace, because sometimes it gets uh, that carbon on it, and it can't sense the flame, and most of the time you just replace that and you're good to go. You want to know how the filters work, where the filters are located. Those are all pluses when it comes down to learning how to work on the basic furnace. And you want to kind of know a little bit about air conditioning units, whether it's a P-Tech unit, the ones that's in the wall. You want to, and they just pull out. You want to kind of know the basics of that. And that's a plus if you know how to work on P-Tech unit, and they fairly easy to work on. And they look a little complicated, but really it's not that big of a deal. But if you work with a seasoned maintenance guy on your job, you'll learn how to do that. The next thing you want to be able to do and not feel that that's not your job is learn how to clean. Cleaning is the first thing I learned how to do in maintenance, is to know how to clean. I used to clean toilets, urinals, you name it, I cleaned it. I learned how to strip floors, how to wax floors, all those things, how to come in if there's an emergency and do some cleaning with a wet vac, and clean the outside of the building, clean around dumpsters. Those are very important things, and some maintenance guys think that's beneath them, but it really isn't. It says a lot about you, and especially if they give you a building to manage, and you keep the outside clean, you keep around your dumpsters clean. Everything is clean. That's a plus, because every time they walk your building and they see your exit signs are lit, emergency lighting is lit, you don't have a fire extinguisher missing. All these things matter. You don't have people hanging around your building smoking dope. If you can keep your building in order, that says a lot about you, and you will grow and get more responsibility, because the more you know, the more you're worth. Now, the pay in maintenance did kind of go down a little. They kind of dropped the pay scale back down. But if you really know what you're doing, you'll get the money. You got to ask for it though. Because they'll tell you, oh, we only paying $17 an hour. But if you know your worth, then you can ask for what you feel you're worth. Because, why did you learn all these things just to get lowballed? So, you want to make sure you don't allow yourself to be lowballed. One of the things that I learned in maintenance was how to plow snow. You know, some companies have their own pickup truck and they have their own plow. And if you can learn how to do that, because nobody wants to really do that, you know, because you got to come in on snowy days or get up early the next day and the truck is cold and you got to get out there and you got to hit the parking lots. And there's an art to that. And, you know, you got to load up the salt bags or the salt spreader or load it up the day before, you know, and it's an art to knowing how to plow, how to move that snow around. And if you get the opportunity where you can do that, that's a plus, you know. And it's fun to do. I love plowing, you know, so that's a plus. You want to learn how to order materials, know what your inventory looks like. You know, you want to know what you got on your shelves. You know, you don't want too little or too much because, you know, it costs money to have materials on your shelf and it's not moving. You know, you want to leave that material on a supplier's shelf and then just get it as needed. But if it's something that you use all the time and it's hard to get, where you may want to stock a few items of that. This way you have it in case of an emergency. So you want to know how to order materials and you want to know about your inventory. You want to know how to do inventory. That's very important, you know, and you want to be cost conscious on the things that you order and how much of it that you have where you're not wasting money. Now, the next thing that's very important, you want to be a good communicator. You want to know how to talk. Because that's very important because they might want you to walk with the city inspector or you may have to talk to the owner of the company or being able to communicate with your superiors. It's very important to know how to communicate, and you want to know how to communicate with the tenants. You know, you want to be able to talk to them in a respectful, proper way where, you know, you're not being disrespectful and they understand what you're saying. And did I miss anything? And finally, you want to try not to have a criminal record. You know, there are some managed companies will hire you if they really could use you, but it's a lot easier to move around in maintenance if you don't have a criminal background record. Not to say that they would discriminate on you or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but you want to try not to have, you know, like a criminal record. And if you already got one, there's nothing you can do about it. You explain the situation and then just take it from there. But you don't really want a criminal background record, especially if you're doing like residential or commercial, anything that's dealing with property, a tenant's unit, anything like that. You want to make sure, you know, that you got a clean record because they do background checks. You know, they will do a background check if you got like a master key that allow you into the building after hours or into all the tenants' suites or apartments or anything like that requires a background check. So you want to make sure that you keep your record clean. So this way you won't have any issues getting hired. And finally, you know, sometimes you have to move around because I've moved around in my career. I didn't stay at one place. You know, I worked everywhere. I mean, I did scattered housing, I did apartment buildings, I did office buildings. At the end of my career, I did a little senior citizen apartment living. You know, I owned my own properties at one time. And sometimes you have to kind of move around to get more knowledge. And sometimes you got to move around to get paid more. So, you know, you don't want to just be bouncing around just to be bouncing around. You want to have a reason why you're doing it. And it's okay to do that because you're going to get more knowledge and you're going to get more pay because some companies don't want to pay you what you're worth. So that's all I have for you. Again, this is Kay, back at it with a new video. Take care, guys.